we've got an exciting afternoon. We're going to be talking about place and we're going to be talking about growth. But place is something that's really close to my heart. I think that you will have picked up signals from government and strategy and policy that we're beginning to get a lot more recognition that if we do work at a smaller scale, focusing on the needs of places, that we're far more successful. And we've been doing some really interesting work here in the West Midlands, some which has come under the auspices of West Midlands Combined Authority, but some of it is that's just happened naturally because people have recognised that that's the right way to work. So I've got a marvellous panel for you this afternoon who are going to share their experiences. It's going to be chaired by Meena Bharadwa, who she and I worked together when we were putting together the framework, the West Midlands Combined Authority framework for growth with Charles. And so we actually worked on the place piece of work. So I think for both of us, it's really quite important. She works for the Access Foundation. She's doing really good work there, and she's particularly interested in creating places that work for everyone, the social economy and inclusive economics. She's a trustee of Economy. She's director of Key Fund and she's one of the team that I just spoke about. So thank you and welcome, Meena. Jo here is someone who I've been working with for the last year, and she absolutely believes in people and communities and the voice of people and bringing that understanding into her work. And she's not frightened to challenge if she thinks things are wrong, I think it would be fair to say. In a good way. No, in a good way. I think it's good. And Cheryl, who, so we've got their joint CEOs, so they're both here today to talk about Grand Union. And Grand Union is an arts organisation in Digbeth, and they're going to talk about their transformation of Junction Works, a Grade 2 listed building that they've taken over, and they're going to talk a little bit about the journey and what's worked and what the challenges are. And it's going to be a community hub and facility for community arts. It's really exciting. So you're going to hear from someone who's done that asset piece or is doing that asset piece that we've been talking about today. I'm very happy to welcome Jeff Henderson, who's the CEO of Urban Hacks. He's one of the leaders of the 9 social economy clusters resourced by West Midlands Combined Authority. And as part of that work, he's led a multi-agency cross-cultural steering group to build a plan with social economy organisations to tackle social and economic issues in Walsall, in the area where their place is. And again, we've been talking about partnership today and the importance of working together, and I think that really Jeff provides quite an exemplar of that way of working. And finally, Natalie, she's the Practice and Innovation Manager with Power to Change, and our paths have crossed because you've been doing evaluation of place-based working and you have knowledge of how other parts of the country are working in this way to improve the lot of communities and also the social economy and their role within those places. So welcome everybody, and over to you, Meena.
Thank you, Sarah, and to you all for coming back after lunch. We are a small but perfectly formed group of people. And just a couple of corrections, because I think this is really important. First thing is, I'm from the Access, the Foundation for Social Investment. Don't all hate me at once. Only because there is an Access Foundation, and we often get confused. So that would be the first thing. No, not at all. It happens all the time. And then the second thing is, I'm not a director of Key Fund anymore. Actually, I had to step down when I joined Access. So just to put that out there. I've stood up because I did a Matt Smith, only because I think there's always going to be something that goes wrong with these stores. So I'll stand up for a little while. So, listen, thanks. It's really nice to be in the West Midlands. We're based in London. I'm actually based in Birmingham. Many of you will know that. It feels like it's nice to come home and actually just revisit all of this work that's been happening for a long time in the West Midlands. And I wanted to share something before we go on to hear from these brilliant people. I was listening to something on the radio which talked about the productivity in the West Midlands, and up until the 60s, do you know there was a tax on the West Midlands because we were so productive? So that's to do with economics if anyone's interested, but it's just really interesting to know that, you know, we were so productive. And I was talking to someone today, you know, we've got the youngest city in Europe, we've got such a diverse community. So what I'm really keen on, and Sarah mentioned about place, don't tell anyone, but I'm completely biased. Place is where it's at. If we want to change, if we want to get economic justice across the country, redistribute wealth, which is really important, as we know, you know, we have to start in places. We have to start with people. We have to start with communities. So, yeah, I mean, feel free to share that if you want to, but I think that's really, really important. So I'm really passionate about this, and I'm really pleased that we've got such brilliant speakers to join us who've been in it, right? Like we talked earlier today, you know, you're not on your own, but sometimes it can feel like a pretty lonely place, excuse the pun. So I'm really pleased that we can share this, and thank you to all of you for being here today. So the format is as it has been all day. We will listen to some provocations, some explorations from our panel, and I would invite you to just be really curious about what you hear, and ask the questions you think someone else won't ask, because I think that's always really helpful. And so we'll hear from them, and then, yeah, over to you for questions, and, yeah, enjoy the afternoon all. So I think we're going to hear from Natalie first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So just for people who aren't familiar with Power to Change, we're the Think Do tank that backs community businesses across England. We started life 10 years ago. It's our 10th anniversary year, primarily as an investor in the sector, so helping grow the community business sector across England. We've now evolved into a long-term organisation, and we're focused on how we can bring together research, practice and partners to shape the conditions for community businesses to thrive. So community businesses, very much place-based organisations. They're locally rooted in place. They're accountable to local people. So they're trusted local organisations. And of course, they're trading for community impact and benefit, and very much helping wealth in its kind of broadest sense build and maintain and circulate locally. And what we found from the past decade is that community business is a really effective mechanism to enable local people to come together to address societal challenges, but through a place-based, localised lens. And we've already heard from quite a few great community businesses today, organisations like Whitton Lodge, who are doing lots of things, but at the heart of their offer, they're providing affordable, appropriate housing for their local community. They're a community landlord for over 200 homes. You've got other organisations like Coalbridge Trust, who, again, doing lots of things, but an important strand of their work is addressing unemployment, and they do this through providing supported work-based opportunities for some of their most deprived community members through their light manufacturing unit. And then you've got organisations like York Supplies. It was really great to hear. I'm not sure where he's gone from, Richard. Hello. Which, again, another quite different community business, but, you know, as we've heard, much more than just a shop. The community coming together to bring it into ownership, to recognise, you know, how social infrastructure in communities play such a important role, I think, in addressing, you know, isolation, loneliness, and creating community cohesion, which we know is kind of more important than ever. So we know community businesses are great, but unfortunately, like many other organisations in the social economy, face many challenges and barriers to doing more to contribute to society. And this is one of the reasons Power to Change is very interested in how place-based approaches can create, you know, like in West Midlands, like the Combined Authority, is a supportive ecosystem for community businesses and other social purpose businesses to thrive and address some of those sort of big challenges at a localised level. And Power to Change, I guess it's good to recognise as well that place and place-based approaches can mean different things to different people. And Power to Change it takes approaches that operate at quite different scales. We're working at a very hyper-local level at the moment with community businesses to test new models of community-led governance and decision-making through our Community Governance Test and Learn partnership. We're working at the kind of town centre, high street scale, working with community businesses to test and innovate new community-led methods to high street renewal. But we also work at a regional level, and I think there's some sort of place-based initiatives that work particularly well at that scale, like addressing access to finance. And we've done a lot in Liverpool City region through establishing and supporting the growth of Kindred, which is a really exciting kind of model, bringing together different types of money to support the growth of community businesses. And it's at that kind of regional level. We're also kind of very interested in the role of combined authorities as a relatively new but sort of growing level of government with new powers and resources, and their role, leaning into their role as like powerful place-based conveners to support this work. Which kind of leads me to our partnership in the West Midlands and how we've been working here with Charles and the Combined Authority to support the implementation of the social economy growth strategy, which we've heard quite a bit about already today. So I won't sort of go into the things that are sort of great about that approach, but I think what's been particularly interesting for us is the importance and recognition of place within that strategy. Because I think, as Meena said as well, if you're really looking to address inequalities, which are, entrenched place-based inequalities, you need to be doing this stuff with communities and in helping communities drive this stuff. So we've been supporting the establishment of the social economy place-based clusters, and it's great to have Jeff here, who I'm sure can talk more about Urban Hack's experience of that work. But yeah, I think the role of place and empowering communities to lead on this stuff and take a ground up approach to driving inclusive growth is really important, and looking forward to discussing more.
Thanks, Natalie. There's lots to think about there in terms of my pet subject, wealth distribution and how it works in places, and community assets, of course. And maybe that's a nice sort of segue into Grand Union.
Yeah, definitely. Is that on? Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl from Grand Union, and I was just going to give you like a little potted history, I guess, to how we've got from where we began as a collective of artists essentially to where we are now. So 15 years ago, as a group of people, we were looking for a space that we could come together as a community, and lots of artists work individually in their studios, and we wanted to create a space that was more communal, where people could benefit from working alongside each other, and as well as that, create a more public space so that other people could come in and experience their work, and we could invite different artists to come and show alongside, and all of the kind of networking and brilliant opportunities that come out of that way of kind of clustering your work. None of us had very much money at that point, and so coming together is also a way of pooling resources to find space to be able to work in. And at that point, we managed to get a little bit of seed money from the City Council to build kind of studios within an old industrial unit in Minerva Works, which is literally just down the road in Digbeth. We decided to move to Digbeth because there was already a community of arts organisations and relevant people that were already there. So we wanted to really come and become part of a community already. And yeah, I guess over the years, we've kind of built up from this kind of group, quite ramshackle group of people, to developing a programme that has more impact socially in the area, that has built a kind of national reputation for commissioning artists and has supported artists here in the city to make their work. I guess like in about 2015-ish, we started to think about the space that we were in, and we've never been able to get a very long lease on that space that we're in. We've never had much autonomy in that space. We've never been able to draw any investment into that space to make it better for us and the people that are visiting. So we, at that point, kind of set about thinking how we could develop that for ourselves, and kind of ownership or long-term lease for building felt like a really obvious place to start. And and I guess what we also wanted to do was make sure that we're not creating a space that was just about us and a sort of inward-looking set of people, but that we could somehow use the like cultural and social capital that we'd built over those years in order to create something that could be more useful for the wider neighbourhood. And we created a role within our organisation, a collaborative programme curator, of which Jo has stepped into, to really think about the kind of relationship that we have in our community and how we could develop some of that. Do you want to say a little bit about that, and then I'll talk a bit more about the capital project itself?
Yeah, sure. That was 7 years ago, which I thought I was coming into a job that was building a new venue that was like going to be imminent, and like 7 years on, we're still working away, but sort of with great tenacity. Like, I guess, like me coming into that role, thinking about the role of culture, thinking about the city, like context is everything. We really, the way that we're approaching that is really thinking about the complexity that we face right now, the multiplicity of crises. I think the sort of, for me, that I'm really interested in regenerative strategies, and I really believe in like artists' role within that and how they can not only make better use and sort of are able to transform our thinking, our sort of the resources that we have, but also speculate and create something new out of what we already have. And I think that regenerative thinking is like so necessary in the world right now, that where we really have to think differently in terms of how we're utilising resources. I think one of the biggest things, the way that I think about things, is really coming in and listening in an embodied way and really understanding need. And I think that often, like, sort of the talk of growth is a capitalist, like, mode of thinking, and that way in the world isn't going to cut it in the future. So we really need to start thinking differently. And I think that's the work that we're doing at Grand Union. We work across disciplines, across sectors. We're able to really sort of translate thinking. And I think sort of we're coming up in a new way of being. The way that we've worked with communities is really thinking about how we can build an enterprise or a model of practice that really centres them and sort of, and I also in like more than human sort of like communities as well, that we really think sensitively about our environment. So we're sort of like rebuilding Digbirth, like sort of from the heart of Grand Union, but sort of that will like sort of sit in the world in a much kinder and gentler way. I'm waffling.
I'll just say, I know we haven't got very long, but so we've kind of embarked on this journey to kind of own a building, essentially. So there's a listed building that's been derelict for many years down in Digbirth called Junction Works, and because of the relationships that we've been building across sectors, you know, we've been kind of working with developers in the city on artistic projects, but have kind of use those relationships to find different opportunities, and we were able to kind of use their knowledge in order to make a kind of bold move and sign an option agreement on this listed building with no capital behind us. And yeah, it's given us a kind of period of time in order to really kind of develop our skills and develop the money that we've needed in order to purchase a 150-year lease on the building. And that's the stage that we've now got to. And we were able to do that by developing good relationships with Homes England, who are our landlords, the City Council. The money that we've generated has come through Community Infrastructure Levy and through the Enterprise Zone. Like, we're lucky that we're in that space. But it's taken many years of kind of relationship building in order to do that. And, you know, I also think that it's kind of... we've developed this like amazing network of people and organisations that have mean we're bigger than the sum of our parts, and so we're really thinking as a kind of group of organisations to see the opportunities and think about how we can work together in order to make the most of them. Is there anything else we should say? No, I think that's probably enough for now. Yeah, we'll go into more in the questions, I'm sure.
Absolutely. No, brilliant. I was writing things down and took some notes definitely around, like I think in this space and particularly the sort of creative spaces, the innovators, the risk takers and the disruptors, and we should never apologise for that. Right? Like we should never apologise for it. And something you said, Joe, about growth, always being bigger. I asked a question about, what does it mean to grow your confidence in order to take on social investment? But growth isn't the end outcome, right? Like your idea of regenerative mindsets, just that really sparked something, and I think we need to take that away with us. So, and then finally, the centering people and communities, because otherwise, why are we bothering? So, thank you both so much. That was really, really interesting. And over to Jeff. Oh, yeah, sorry. Ran too right. Over to you, Jeff.
My day job is one of the directors of Urban Hacks, which is a community interest company which has been on the go since 2014. We started off with an Awards for All grant of £10,000. Our turnover now is about 50 times what it was back then, but it's taken 10 years, and I'm only 32. Yes, as a community interest company, we run a creative, a community makerspace where people get access to equipment to design and make things, and we run a creative incubator. So we develop the skills in creatives across the whole of the making spectrum. So we're quite agnostic as what is meant by creativity, but we've just gone through the pain barrier of working with the council, the funders, and we're converting the Guildhall, which is a Grade 2-star listed building in Walsall, into the Creative Industry Centre, and that's taken 5 years. These things do take a long time to work through the system, but it opens next year, so great, crack on. How did we start with the social economy cluster work? I think we were kind of press ganged into it. I remember in a meeting with Charles, maybe 2023. Yes, and that was down at Whitton Lodge at Absal's place, and there were some natural candidates to run social economy clusters in Wolverhampton, in Dudley and Sandwell, in Birmingham, and so on. And Paul Gordon, who's our Director of Resilience at the Council, some of his colleagues are here today, he kind of nominated us to lead the social economy cluster, and we're going, what's a social economy cluster? And of course, nobody knows what a social economy cluster is. That's the whole point of the exercise. It's to prove something through. It's an experiment. And so they were particularly keen on looking at one particular part of Walsall, which was Palfrey and Karma. And for those of you who don't know that area, it is hugely multicultural. It is deprived. It's got all the hallmarks of those areas which are deserving of support. What our initial task was to go, okay, what have we got here? Yeah, and so I pulled together 3 other people to work together as a team to do this. Carolyn, who got good links with Aston University, independent consultant, runs her own social enterprise. Jackie Bell, ex-programme manager, Sandwell Council, knows local government speak. And Carl Woodward, ex-private sector, worked in the automotive sector and understood procurement inside out from a private sector world. And so we got together, looked at what we had and said, okay, where do we start? And where we wanted to start was to better understand the Palfrey and Karma area of Walsall and how active were the social enterprises therein. And so Carl, who's a bit of a data geek, he set himself away and started searching through Companies House, Charities Commission. He became Sherlock Holmes, and he unearthed about 123 social enterprises in the Palfrey and Karma area. It came as a surprise to the council that there were so many, but maybe, for that area and that population, yeah, that's fine. And of course, what you have is a whole range of social enterprises addressing a whole range of social problems, economic problems, and so on. What we wanted to do was co-design something. We didn't know what the something was, but we wanted to work with others. And so we created a group which represented maybe 10 of the groups which in Palfrey and Karma. So Eastern European, Afghan, Afro-Caribbean, and so on and so on and so on. So we're getting a broad picture of life in that part of the world. these people don't always get on with each other. They're all competing for funds. Yeah, so do they see themselves as competition, or do they see themselves as collaborators in a bigger cause? So we spent some time gathering the data and brought in Carolyn to do a series of co-design exercises to surface the key issues. And some of those key issues are those you would recognise anywhere, yeah? Crime, violence, yeah, a whole raft of issues. And so within our kind of model, we'd surfaced the issues, we'd identified the social enterprises, then what do we want to do? So we came up with the idea, the concept of a social improvement district. So like a business improvement district, which is all about business putting in a levy to support that particular location, that particular place, we thought, would a social improvement district model work, where we could go to the private sector, and there's lots and lots of large private sector companies operating in Walsall, and some in that locale who are bringing with them big contract. They've won big contracts, and they have a social value component. And what we wanted to do was present them with a mechanism by which they could contribute. Yes, they could pat themselves on the back and said, yes, we've done our social value piece, but more importantly, we're getting much more buy-in. So we're creating a communication between the locale, the people in the locale, and the large companies coming in with big contracts. And I think the key to it, well, there's two main keys to it. One is to be able to talk to the private sector. And as Caroline and other people know, talk to the private sector, talk to the public sector, talk to the third sector, talk to the academic centre. You need 4 voices. And so you need people who have the ability to speak with those voices to those right people. And I think getting people in the entire area to be able to have those conversations is really important. The other thing which we're finding is important is the bringing together of the 4 sectors: the public sector, the private sector, the third sector, and the academic sector. As part of the programme, a lot of the clusters were involved in a growth programme at Aston University. I think we all came away with lots of new skills, lots of new ideas, and a new network of people. So networks are absolutely critical to what it is that we're attempting to do. Why should you try and do everything yourself? Well, we've got people in this room like Gabrielle, and they're doing great things with IT. Why can't we tap into her brain and spread the expertise in IT amongst the region? We'd have to pay her, but that's not. It's about value. It's not about just her giving up her time. So it's a work in progress. It's a project in progress. So far, so good. We've got results. We've submitted our Action for Growth plan. We've submitted our SID as a concept. Charles has managed to scrounge a wee bit more money, so we're now going to take it to a next step. We're commissioning. We're bringing in students from Aston to do 2 exercises, one before Christmas, one after Christmas, and go. There's the SID model. Tear it to bits and put it back together again. So both of those will give us an insight from younger people on what it is that we're trying to do. Thank you.
Really, really interesting, Jeff. And can I just tell you that Jeff's been telling everyone he's 32 for the last 10 years, so... Sorry, that was... that was... He is, no, absolutely. I've seen his passport, so... sorry, that was me being really cheeky. But I thought what was really interesting about that was about bringing the different bits of the jigsaw together. And, we know that is needed. It's not easy. It takes time. And let's be real. Places have their own politics. They have actors in there. They have their own histories. And so it's not as easy as just saying, oh, this is great. We want to do place-based working and let's pick a place and it's all going to come together because everyone wants the same thing. I'm sure everyone does want the same thing, but how we want to get there sometimes isn't always the same path. So I think it's really important to talk about the reality of working in place and how challenging that can be. So thank you, Jeff, and congratulations on that, because I think that feels like a really interesting kind of conversation about the infrastructure that we were talking about earlier today. So I am sure that has given you lots of food for thought. And it's really up to you now to make sure that I get my 10,000 steps. So I need lots of questions, and I will move around and come and speak to you. So, any questions to kick us off? Oh, Evan at the back. That's excellent. Good start. If you've got any at the front next, that would be fab.
Hello, everybody. It's Richard Bickle. Not just from York Supplies, but also I'm currently working on the bringing together of two large regional consumer cooperative societies to create a new, really big co-op. And in fact, we've got a meeting tonight to vote on that. And one of the things that I'm grappling with is we're very, very proud of the deep roots that we have in local communities going back more than 160 years. But as our organisation gets bigger, being driven by the need for scale economies for survival and to be able to thrive in the future, do the panel think it's still possible to demonstrate those kind of deep local roots, whether that be in towns and villages in rural East Anglia, or whether it be in the urban villages and towns of the Black Country, or in Oxfordshire or in Derbyshire? What does that look like? I mean, I'm very close to this, so I've obviously got lots of thoughts. But as people who are very proud about place-based social enterprise, just curious about your reflections on the kind of challenges and dilemmas that we're facing at the moment. Thank you.
I guess it's how you can build in structures that enables you to practice that complexity, because that sort of different places have different issues, and I think by creating one entity, you're assuming that you're going to have like one answer to something, and so how within that sort of new mega cooperative structure seems somehow a little bit wrong to me. But yeah, how you can build in that complexity.
I guess if I add to that, when we set up Grand Union, like we could have set up an organisation that had 50 studios, so we would have been supporting like loads of different artists, but we quite purposefully decided to be a bit smaller and set up with other organisations, because we knew that we were all serving different people and had these different networks that work really strongly together. So yeah, whether that sort of super cooperative can be a way of connecting lots of smaller things that still serve their kind of purpose and their need. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like that's a good way to go.
I think from my perspective, communities will benefit most if there is a mixed and diverse social economy. So yes, some organisations will and should always stay small, but others will grow. And I guess it's coming back to that kind of point around like what is growth and what is like good growth. And if it's around growing impact and resilience and still serving communities are still mechanisms, then yes. But I guess when you get to sort of growth for growth's sake, that's when you kind of lose that rootedness. Yeah.
Our project, not the cluster project, the Guildhall project, is funded through the Arts Council through their Cultural Development Fund. And so we get the chance to go and visit other Cultural Development Fund projects around the country, one of which was in Rochdale. And for those of you who know Rochdale, it was the birthplace of the cooperative movement, which has brought that back into my brain, that if we're looking at a model for a creative building, is there the opportunity to look at a cooperative ownership model? And the jury, we haven't done the research yet, but it's not as though it's now left field. It's actually part of our thinking to explore, because we're a CIC. Should the CIC be the only instrument that we use to capitalise on the resources we've got at our fingertips? So a cooperative model, but very much something which we're looking to explore.
Fab, thank you. Yeah, question at the front. Great. Did exactly what I asked. And just as I'm walking and talking, I've always wanted to do this, but like the idea of legal structures, I think feels really important. And there is, on the Good Finance website and other websites, lots of really useful information, but I think that's really important. You don't have to stay the legal structure that you are if it's not suiting your purpose anymore. So worth thinking about.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, what can be the power of the social economy in places? What can the social economy achieve?
So I suppose, firstly, we know that social economy community businesses tend to operate in areas of market failure. So they're operating in deprived communities, they're providing jobs and employment opportunities for those furthest from the labour market. And like I've talked about before, they're generating and maintaining and building wealth locally. I think they also put power in communities' hands. So, and this is one of the things we're testing with a mechanism like community covenants. You know, how can we facilitate using social economy organisations like community businesses, more community-led like co-design and delivery, which might be of public services, it might be local regeneration planning, it might be to decide the future of an asset or fund. But community covenants are kind of a power that we're calling for to be included in the forthcoming community empowerment bill. And they would basically facilitate like a power sharing agreement with a community business, facilitating the power between local authority or public authority and local people to make a whole range of decisions. And we're testing those at the moment. One up the road with Ford Hill Community Farm in Shropshire, where they're co-designing a new family hub, and another in Stratford in Greater Manchester, looking at a new health and wellbeing plan for their neighbourhood. So I think it's all about putting power back in community hands. And we know that, I think it's 86% of people from a poll we did recently feel like they have no control over the future of their area. And, that's kind of giving right to some of the far right populism we're seeing. So it's really important to find ways of putting power back in everyday people's hands. And I think the social economy does that.
If I can just add to that as well. Yeah, I think, that's sort of what our capital project is all about, really, is giving us the autonomy to be able to generate our own income to sustain our social practice and our kind of social impact. So, yeah, it's trying to sort of get assets into the community and into social businesses and charities and CICs so that they can generate the income that they need to sustain themselves, instead of us paying it out to a landlord that we're at the whim of. That's the sort of difficulty that we've found.
Jeff?
We sat in an event last year before. It was about the subject of procurement, and we had some large organisations talking about their efforts in terms of procurement. And I think you had a couple of words to say about how they were dealing with that matter. And I think, to me, that the social economy is the economy, but I think the model needs to be flipped. And so when large companies, you might think I'm mad saying something like this, but if people are bidding for contracts, the social value should be the 80%, and whatever they're going to build should be the 20%, and they're judged on the social value. Is that ever going to happen in our lifetime? You've just got to keep the pressure on the system to go, this is really, really important. Yes, your profits are important. You're a business. You need to make money. But let's bang heads together to make more of the social value.
That's great. And if I can add something, that's all right, Sarah, just to that, because I think there's something, Joe, something you said again, that regenerative mindset. The way in which the system is working is failing lots of people, and the social economy can produce outcomes that are more impactful, more meaningful. And we know this. There is evidence to prove this. So actually it's not about people just churning themselves through the system. It's about creating better outcomes for people and places and communities. So, there's something really powerful in that story. And I think, Sarah, you've been talking about this for a while. Like, how do we keep telling that story and producing the evidence? And someone talked about data, and let's get our head around that stuff as well. So, I think important.
Hello, Josie Kelly from Access to Business. We've talked a long time as cluster leads what we're going to do, and we've also talked about social enterprise directories. We've started ours in Wolverhampton, and we're starting to get more and more interest. But something Sarah said a while ago at one of the BSEC roundtables was, do we all buy from each other? And I think we probably fail as a social economy organisations that we don't do that. So if we can all produce directories, and I've got a passion for this, and Charles knows that. But we're trying to get sponsors for our social economy directory because we're funding it ourselves at the moment. But I went to an event last year as part of West Midlands Business Festival, where the organisation Find It in the Black Country did something on social value. And there were businesses there that said, I'd love to buy from a social economy organisation. Who are they? How do I find out who they are? What do I do? And I mentioned the directory to them, and they said it would be great if we could just have one. And I know, Jeff, we've all got things that we can sell. Perhaps we need to work together to see how we can do it more. And we've also developed a commercial services brochure now, where a lot of the social enterprise businesses that we've supported, we've put them into our brochure and we're promoting their services. And so it would be great if we could have some more funding for that, Charles. So we could all do a brochure on what's available. And we have said to businesses, if you'll sponsor us, if you get any work from our brochure, then can you give us a referral fee? So I'd like to talk more in our clusters on how we can roll this out to other partners. But I know, Jeff, what you do, you get sponsorships and you're going to business. And I think one of the things we do lack is businesses coming forward and recognising the impact that we have as social organisations. And I get people go, I do my bit, I give to children in need every year, without recognising the impacts. And I think we all need to shout more to business as well. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
We, maybe 10 years ago, we produced 3 supply chain portals, one for the automotive sector, one for the construction sector, and one for the rail sector. And it was all about raising the visibility of local suppliers in the eyes of buyers. And the one we did for Sandwell Council, which was based upon the Midland Met, when Carillion were around at the time, rest in peace. Yeah. And it was about introducing the smaller suppliers in the area to how they can actually become more visible in the supply chain to buyers. So I think the directory is fine, but I think also the directory needs to be more of a portal where you can do intertrading. Yeah. And I think just from one of this morning's presentations, was it York to do the plants? Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm going to talk to him because we need some plants for our new building. And why should I not go to a social enterprise for it?
And I think this is the sort of power of working in place and facilitating more place-based working, because, just from being here today, there's so much stuff happening in the region and in the different localities. And I think what's been great about the clusters is that it's a relatively small amount of funding, but it's been really catalytic because it's core funding, it's funding that frees people up from the everyday, where we know a lot of social economy organisations, there's such high need at the moment, there's scarce resources, people are firefighting, it's very hard to take your head above water and look at the bigger picture and look at the opportunities for collaboration and sharing of resources. So I think that's kind of the power of place-based working, and would encourage any funders in the room to think more about, possibilities of providing that flexible core funding and funding in this way, because I think the impact it can have is there's a real ripple effect, and it's really impactful and really exciting.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? I'm going to come over to you. I think we've got 5 more minutes, Sarah.
Yeah, I think some of the questions that have been asked are in line with sort of my worries, if I can describe them as that. And that is that, we start organizations and they are small and they are beautiful, and then we get growth and we think, oh, that's wonderful, we are growing now. And that's good, isn't it? But it isn't beautiful anymore, right? And I'm just wondering that, we seem to be going through this cycle again and again and again and again, yeah? And I'm just wondering whether people have any ideas about how we could maybe circumvent that cycle so that, we remember the beautiful aspects of it and make that as a sort of priority. It's very difficult to do. I'm not criticizing anybody here, but I'm just wondering what ideas are there in this room that would perhaps prolong us on that path rather than us kind of, going like that.
Thank you.
And I think it's that thing of like we in a capitalist society we have to accumulate. That's how we sort of like survive. But actually we need to recognise that we're quite abundant in the world, and that actually we can let go. Because if we let go, that goes somewhere else and to somebody else, and then everybody starts to sort of flourish. And I think it's that, quite simply, you just let go of it.
We're really an organisation which are about ideas, about new ideas and new ways of doing things. That doesn't always carry through, and I completely agree with what you're saying, that if we come up with an idea and then we get funding, then you're on a helter-skelter, you're going up and down, up and down. And so our kind of approach to what we're going to be doing going forward, and we have many disagreements internally as a board, is we're looking more to create a talent pool that we can tap into. In other words, we'll create an idea, we'll convince somebody to run with that idea, but we won't deliver that idea ourselves. It's just impossible to deliver against those a diverse range of ideas. So we're actively creating a talent pool where we can call upon individuals or organisations who can actually do the work. But they might not be able to win the work in the first place. So we can win the work, but your point is very valid about keeping that beauty at the beginning and not losing it. And I think if we try and just grow and grow and grow, the danger is we do. But our approach to that is to try and keep ourselves reasonably small, but then have a talent pool around who are competent and capable of delivery.
Brilliant, thank you. Let it go. It's a line. How are we doing for time? We've got... It's Charles.
No, I just want to pick up on that because it is a good point. I'll tell you what I mean by growth. Growth isn't all about getting bigger. It's not about growing in size or scale. It's not about growing your income. It's about growing your impact. It's about growing your skills. It's about growing your sustainability so you can keep on. Growth isn't just about getting bigger, because that doesn't work. I've grown a lot over the last 50 years, but it hasn't done me any good. But growth is what we want. I mean, of the 9,000 odd social economy organisations that are out there, there are a whole raft of them that we are far better off leaving alone, not touching. They're not interested in what we're doing. They're not interested in this growth ecosystem. They want to be left alone, but they want life to be a little bit easier for them if we can. So we do as little as we possibly can with those and allow them to be beautiful in their own right. Because I agree with you, small is often beautiful. I think the stuff that they're doing in the places, it's about bringing people together so you can share ideas, you can share skills, and you can share talents, but you can still stay small. And consortia working and partnership working will allow you to do that. So growth isn't just about scale and size. It's about growth in whatever dimension you want growth to happen in.
I think it's also about like not thinking about growth as kind of getting bigger, but like how do we deepen our roots so that we're more sustained in where we are, and it's not about us getting bigger, but actually if we think about our network as the growth thing, and we've developed this strategy for the cultural sector in Digbeth and use the idea of companion culture as like the kind of key idea. So it's about thinking about how all these different organisations and people and places kind of exist alongside each other, and what can we all do to make sure that everyone's thriving. And that's not about having one solution for everybody, it's about having lots of different solutions that all rub against each other and help each other and develop new things within that. You make a really kind of a rich tapestry of things that are going on, and I think if we all kind of works like that, and if big business worked like that alongside the social economy, you know, we could really kind of make things really rich for everybody.
That's fine. Fantastic way to end, actually, because I think that's the point. Maybe growth is about like deepening our roots, deepening our work, and how we sort of connect up with each other. So the mycelium network for those of us who are that way inclined. Listen, a massive thank you to the panel. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and sharing your ideas. You were brilliant, so massive clap to you.